welcome to this week's instalment of the Collingwood Board podcast for Big Footy. I am the Mighty T, and tonight we have taken the show on the road. We have ventured into the dark depths of South Australia, so turn your clocks 10 years back as I introduce you to Hot Pies with Sauce. Hot Pies, are you there?
I'm here. I've just finished squeezing a body into a barrel and finished sleeping with my cousin, so I'm ready to join you for the rest of the night.
That's excellent. We're also joined by MegaBob. MegaBob, how are you doing tonight, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. I'm still stuck in the time travel, but yeah, we're getting there. Finding out what this internet is all about.
I was going to say it must be exciting for you, only just getting the copy of the 1990 Grand Final on VHS. We did win. Don't worry about the 91 season, but we won. We won in 1990, so it's all good. Now, what's always fascinated me, obviously I'm from Victoria, what's it like being a Collingwood supporter interstate? You know, South Australia is obviously a hotbed for AFL, and you've got two very passionate clubs there. What's it like not supporting one of those two big sides?
It's not as bad as you'd think. They tend to attack each other, I find. If it's kind of like if you just stand by and let two big idiots just go at each other paw for paw. But the thing that I find annoying is that they never update their stereotypes. They can look at me and you can see, yes, I've got all my teeth. No, I've never stolen a car. I'm not at Centrelink every fortnight. Well, that's only because they won't let me back anymore because of that dodgy disability benefit scheme I ran, but that's for another day. But you know what? Yeah, I'm kind of it's not too bad. There's a good sort of SA membership group here that sort of have a weekly function at the I think it's called the Directors Hotel. So if you can get along to that, it's great. You get to sort of hang around with your friends and watch the game.
And do our South Australian Magpie cousins, well, they call themselves Port Adelaide these days, but do they give you any trouble, MegaBob?
No, not really. I mean, it's mostly the AFL fans like the Crow supporters who just started noticing what football was in 1990. We cop it left, right, centre from there. But poor Magpies, they will very quickly tell us the premierships than we do. But apart from that, it's not too much from them. They keep pretty quiet.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you, mate. I certainly enjoy watching Port myself. There's something about them that I'm just drawn towards. I guess the other thing I want to ask you about in regards to footy in South Australia is the new update on the Adelaide Oval. How's that going to change football watching for all of our South Australian friends?
Well, to begin with, I thought that it was only going to be Port Adelaide that were going to be playing at Adelaide Oval and that it was going to be Crows at AAMI Stadium. But recently I've been told that they're both going to be playing at Adelaide Oval and they're going to be destroying AAMI Stadium. And when I heard that, I thought that's amazing because you've got to have a stadium central in the city for it to be a stadium, you know, a high-class stadium, just like as it is in Melbourne. You've got your MCG, you've got your Etihad. You need to have a city stadium. You're going out to Dingo Whoop Whoop every single Saturday just to watch a football game, and it takes you about an hour to get there, takes you 2 hours to get back. It's just not on. You don't want to do it. At the end of the game, you don't feel like going out afterwards. When it's in the city, at least you can get out. You've had a few of your Coopers or maybe your West Ends if that's being given to you for free. You can head out into the city and you can just get absolutely schmozzled and enjoy the rest of your night.
Absolutely, I can't disagree with that. And we are in Victoria fairly blessed in terms of having those two stadiums within close proximity. We have a nice sporting precinct. And look, I think that any way that we can enhance football viewing anywhere in the country is good news for me. I want to talk about this week's theme round for the AFL. It is women's round in the AFL this week, and it's a good time for us to reflect on how women have influenced us growing up in football and how we see women in the game. Boys, what are your thoughts on that, MegaBob?
Oh, well, obviously AFL's embraced women's round, and that's a good thing. We've got Kelsey Roffey, the goal umpire, who was lucky enough to umpire in the final last year, so that was obviously a huge effort. And you look through the statistics now, and there's 2,000 female umpires in the AFL now, so we've obviously embraced the female community in the AFL, and it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, the umpiring thing that you mentioned is amazing. The initiative that I know a lot of high schools have set up here, girls that study certain subjects are able to go in and do umpiring courses and little coaching certificates for AFL. It's really handy. HotPiesWithSauce, tell me, what are some of your better experiences at football with a significant other or with women in your life?
Look, I've always liked women. I love women. My mother is a woman. Yeah. I've my girlfriend, when I first met her, happened to be a Crows supporter. I almost dumped her on the spot when I heard that. But when I challenged her to name 3 players from the Crows team, she could not do it. So she eventually turned over to the light side, and she was at the 2010 AFL Premiership with me. And she happened to be at the 2011 loss with me as well. So we've experienced the highs and the lows, and that's what a good woman's all about. She's there to support you all the way through.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about in regards to 2011. But no, I completely agree with that. That's fantastic. And personally, I come from a family of Collingwood supporters, and I had an ex-girlfriend who was supporting Richmond, and she never seemed to come around. So I've got to say that's one of the reasons why I broke up with her. But in terms of Collingwood's impact with women in football, it's great to see that the club has gotten around and tries to use women in many different ways around the club. Currently, we have 28 women on staff with our administration, and 5 of them work in the football side of things. We have Alicia Camplin, who is a Winter Gold medalist on our Collingwood board, and I think that's a fantastic initiative by the clubs. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. The more women, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's launch into the business side of things. We come up against the might of Port Adelaide, and there's no sarcasm there at all anymore, is there? It's going to be a bit of a task. What are your thoughts, MegaBob?
Yeah, they've come along really well this year. Last year there wasn't too much to look at, but this year with Ken Hinkley at the helm, they've had the first 5 games of the year a win. They just knocked off the reigning premiers, so you can't take this game for granted at all. They're going to come out all guns blazing.
And you're right about that. They really have attacked this season with a renewed vigour. I have a chat later on to one of the posters from the Port Adelaide Forum, Enviable Tradition, and have a good look at the game. And he's quite positive. Does he have a reason to be so enthusiastic about this week's game?
He definitely has if you looked at the start of the year at this game, you would have penciled it in as a definite win to Collingwood. But now we're 13 rounds in. They're sitting in about 7th or 8th position. They've just knocked off the premiers from last year, and they did it quite easily if you watch the game. If they had actually been more accurate and hadn't kicked out in the fall so often during that game, they would have won by a larger margin. And it was in the wet too, so basically they out-Sydneyed Sydney in all aspects of the game. If I was a Port Adelaide supporter, I would be ecstatic about the future of our club. But this week, it's all going to come crashing to the ground as they come up against our might.
Listen, I love the positive attitude. Where do you think it's going to go right for Collingwood? How do you see us getting on top of them, Hot Pies?
One thing we have to look at doing is stopping Hamish Hartlett. If you look at the first 5 games for Port Adelaide's season, Hamish Hartlett was instrumental off of the half-back line. He was setting up attacks. He was running through. He was breaking lines. Then the opposition side started to basically get down onto him, and that doesn't sound good. But, clamped down on Hamish Hartlett, and that's when they started to do a lot less well. But against Sydney, he, again, just started doing the things that he was doing for the first 5 rounds, and that's someone that we really need to clamp down on. I'm not sure who's going to be able to do it. Maybe some sort of
someone like Brett McCaffer. He's done a lot of the tagging for us so far this year.
Yeah, possibly Brett McCaffer. I was thinking more to go on to Travis Boak, or maybe. Yeah, I think, Brent McCarthy could probably do that. Go into the forward line and be a forward a forward defender, something like that. Another person I would think of clamping down on is Wingard. And someone I was thinking of that would be perfect for that role, maybe to try out, is Sinclair, who did such a great role on Dowhouse a couple of weeks ago.
He's certainly a divisive figure, young Ben Sinclair at Collingwood. Meanwhile, how do you see his standing in the team and his new position in defence?
Excuse me. Sinclair's a bit of a up and down guy. You just don't know what he's going to do. In forward line, he was a bit inaccurate and they killed us a bit. But in the back line, he actually was quite comfortable, and I was quite happy with his performance the other week. If he maintains the shutdown role he's had, he's looking all right.
Yeah, and he has got the attributes, the speed and the tackling ability to be a really good defensive player. I mean, one guy that I've noticed from the Port side of things that has really attacked the season quite well is a guy by the name of, I think it's Matty Broadbent. He's really been a spark for them on the outside. I think the big reprieve that we get is that it looks like their captain, Travis Boak, will be missing the game. What kind of influence does that have on the Port lineup?
That's going to be very helpful for Collingwood. Travis Boak, he's just been one of their best players year in, year out. And when I heard that he wasn't going to go to Geelong, I think it was last year that everyone was saying he was going to go to Geelong.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, he basically... They bribed him with the captaincy and kept him in South Australia, and that's held him out so much. So being one of their most skillful players, I think that's going to be a huge loss for Port Adelaide.
I think it'll allow our players to free up a little bit more. MegaBob, in terms of what you've seen of Port Adelaide this year, do you generally think they can make the finals?
I haven't looked at their home run, actually, but from what I've seen, they're not a bad team to watch at all. I'm just looking at their stats at the moment. Their last quarter has been absolutely active. They've won 10-2, and they've scored 339 points, and against they've lost 201 points. So if they maintain the fitness they've got, I don't see any problems with them being a final team at all.
And that's certainly going to play into their advantage this weekend as we fail to close down a few games. All right, let's move into our quick questions for the week. All right, Hot Pies. Bob, you ready for these?
Yes, let's go. Mm-hmm. Hit me.
Go for it.
Beautiful. All right. How would you feel about playing Essendon in a final?
Personally, I wouldn't like it. But if they've only ever taken these anti-obesity drugs and the tanning drugs, I don't really mind about taking on some skinny, orange-looking people anyway. Maybe we should be able to beat them.
What about you, MegaBob?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, their drugs weren't completely, not extremely performance-enhancing. They were taken last year. So I'm not too adverse to it. But, yeah, I don't know. See what happens. I think I'll just see them falling off at the end of the year anyway, so I'm not too fussed about them.
Very interesting. Okay, will our returning players help stabilise our form over the coming weeks?
Yeah, it'll be great to get Luke Ball back in just for his inside work. He's just the way he comes back in and hits the ball hard, and his disposal too. It seems to have improved over the last couple of years. And Dane Beams, of course, that he will improve any team.
Your thoughts, MegaBob?
Yeah, same boat. I'm always looking forward to seeing Luke Ball again. But Dane Beams is obviously the big name for us. And, yeah, if he comes back into it, I'll be absolutely thrilled. I'd love to watch him work.
and him and Luke Ball working together is something we haven't seen in a long time. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
You've done half my job for me, boys. Leading into my third question, what are your expectations of Dane Beams coming back from injury?
I'd like to, be a little bit. Look, Dane Beams is a champion, and I just want him to come back and kick 4 goals a game, get 30 possessions a game at least, and just destroy and win the Brownlow medal from round 13. That's really what I want from Dane Beams. I don't think it's asking too much. Do you think? No? Yeah.
What are your thoughts,
MegaBob? That's my expectation as well. I want Dane Beams to clean up in a big time. And but I mean, realistically, he'll be looking at a VFL game or 2 down the track, but I see him being one of those impact players. As soon as he comes back in, he'll be just raring to go and be a great addition to our team.
Absolutely. He's made a huge impact. Okay. Quinton Lynch or Chris Dawes, did we make the right call?
Can I sit on the fence on this one? It's really hard to call. The first couple of games, Q-Stick, I was singing his praises and I was burning all my effigies of Dawes that I had on my walls. But now it's just, he's starting to miss these crucial goals. And it's just the images of that little pinky finger. It makes you just quiver inside. But he is doing a great job in the ruck and he's still getting to the ball and he's still marking the ball. So, at least he's one up on Dawes at the moment. So I'd have to go with a big Q stick at the moment.
Yeah, I was thinking if we keep Chris Dawes, he'd probably be the same player he was last year. I think Mel would have just really moulded him to being a leaner player who can run around a lot more than what he used to. But I don't know what to do with Quinton Lynch. I loved him at the start of the year, and I think other teams just figuring him out. He's not the quickest player going around, but I do think there's potential for him to have one of those breakout games where he can snake 3 or 4 goals for us and be a really good player for us. So I'm just hanging out for the game.
Interesting opinions. Okay. Elijah Edwards, should we be looking to recruit a player that is less than 170 centimetres tall?
We've shown in the past that we're not scared of, employing the midget or anyone smaller than that. And look, I love the Game of Thrones, and if anyone is familiar with the Game of Thrones, there's a little guy called Tyrion or the Imp. Love him. The best character in it, and the reason why he's one of the best characters in it is because he's so smart. And if Elijah Edwards is half as intelligent as Tyrion Lannister, then he's going to be a brilliant player for us. And, maybe in the back lines, we could, when someone's going to go kick the goal for the winning goal after the siren, just like Ash McGrath did against Geelong on the weekend, we could throw him up in the air because he's so light and he could just stop the ball on the line. So, you just think about those sort of advantages.
I think we've already got our Tyrion Lannister in Jared Blair. I don't see, Elijah looks good. I'm happy to have him on board, but I really don't see us needing more short players. We haven't done some more already. But what we're doing is pace. If he's a quick player, then maybe it might be worth bringing him in as a senior player.
I just think we could hide him in Jared Witz's sock and just unleash him at certain parts of the game as an extra player. If you could interview one person at the club, who would it be?
I'm really not sure about this one. I did see on the club on the weekend, Damien Monkhorst got interviewed, and he's missing his front teeth. And look, Damien, if you're listening to this, can you please replace the front teeth? It's not doing anything for our stereotype right now, okay? Just replace them. Get some health insurance or ask Eddie for a loan, but somehow replace those teeth. But seriously, if I was going to interview anyone, I would probably interview Daisy, and I would ask him 3 questions. And these 3 questions would be, are you leaving? Are you leaving? Are you leaving? That's all I want to know. Are you leaving? And then I'd probably finish it up with, please don't leave. Please don't leave.
What about you, Megabot?
Don't know. I don't think I'd like to interview Heath Shaw because I'm pretty sure he'll just yell at me all the time. I think I'd just be like everyone else and probably go for Nathan Buckley. I just love the guy. He's an interesting guy. He knows football inside and out, and just be good to pick his brain just for a little bit, see what he thinks about how we're travelling, where we're going, and just what he thinks of Collingwood in general.
He'd be a great man to talk football with. And the last question I've got for us tonight is, if the BNF was counted at this point of the year, who would be the winner?
I would have to say Scott Pendlebury for sure. He's just been week in, week out, our best player, and it's got to be him by a country mile.
Yeah, Pendlebury has to be. I still think he can offer just a little bit more, but at the moment he's far and ahead of everyone else. If Luke Ball had a full season and going the way he's going, he could snatch it, but it has to be Pendlebury at this point in time.
Yep, I've got to agree with that assessment as well. All right, boys, it looks like we've reached the end of our allotted time for the week. I'd like to thank you both for taking some time out of your busy schedules to join me. I know it's hard when you've got to go outside and stoke the fire and make sure the house is warm without all that electricity that we have. But look, it's been a fantastic pleasure hearing from both of you and putting a few more voices to names on this Collingwood forum. So thank you very much, MegaBob.
Oh, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you very much, Hot Pies with Sauce.
Thank you very much. I'll sit back with my fine South Australian wine and stuff some more bodies in some barrels.
And please go to the game this week, fellas, and get behind the team. I can't be there, unfortunately, but we can use all the support we can get as kings of the road. All right. Thank you very much again, boys. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, boys. All right, we are privileged to be joined tonight by Enviable Tradition, a reputed and highly renowned Port Adelaide poster on the Big Footy forums. Hello, Enviable Tradition. How are you tonight?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. I think that's overselling it a little bit, but I'm glad to be on. I'm looking forward to having a chat.
You're much loved from what I can see. We're also joined by equally loved and equally renowned MegaBob from the Collingwood forum. Bob, how you doing tonight, mate?
I'm very good. You're being way too kind to me, but I'll claim every good word I get.
Well, look, as I said, I've got to be a good host and keep everyone happy. Now, Mr. Tradition, we have a few questions for you from our Collingwood forum that we'd like you to answer regarding your club. First and foremost, the rise in the respect of the Port Adelaide Football Club has been huge this season. Port's form this season has been above and beyond what everyone would have expected. How do you see that?
Yeah, look, I think, we've kind of almost had a bit of a season in two halves, I think. Our first 5 games were fantastic and probably, above and beyond even what we expected as Port supporters. We were pretty happy with that start to the season. And then we had 5 games where it really sort of, dropped away quite a bit as well. So, there was a real split there. Which I think, probably comes down to the group and the team that, they're still a pretty young team. They're still developing. They've obviously come a long way since last year, which is, pretty exciting for us. And to see them, bounce back, I guess, from that slump and have such an amazing win on the weekend was really exciting for us, to win against Sydney playing, that Sydney style football, or what we like to call that Port Adelaide style football, some really gutsy defence-based, ball-winning football is super exciting for us as Port fans. So, it's a bit of a, up and down team, I guess. The form is hard to get a guide on, but I think that's, pretty natural being such a young team as well.
Absolutely, and as you point towards this past weekend's result and the victory over the Yards Together competition, in my opinion, it's pretty big. But where do you think this improvement has come from in the group? Is it a mindset? Is it a skill thing? What is it?
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think, number one, I think the fitness of the group under Darren Burgess has been a huge improvement. I think that's something they've definitely identified as not being as strong in previous years and have really worked on that in the pre-season, and I think has really paid dividends. The way Port's been able to finish out games this year has been pretty good, superb really, particularly compared to previous years where, in that red time at the end of quarters and the end of games, we've really struggled and had a lot of points scored against us. So I think the fitness was definitely one aspect of that. The coaching's been a huge improvement, I think, or at least the reaction to the coaching. The players have been really taking that on board. I think it's been getting back to some really, good traditional Port Adelaide football, which is, basing it around defence, basing it around winning the hard ball, doing the hard yards, doing the team things. And that's what, Port really built its success on over 100 years. And so I think that's been, getting back to that base, which I think, at the end of the day, footy can be quite a simple game. There's obviously complicated structures that come into play in AFL footy, but getting back to doing those basics well, I think has probably been the number one thing that's led to that improvement.
And you've got to say that must come down to the head coach and the appointing of Ken Hinkley. How have you seen him performing for Port Adelaide and his impact on the club?
Yeah. Look, I think if you were giving Kenny a score out of 10 so far, I think he'd probably score an 11. He's just done everything right so far. Certainly from the outside looking in, what he's been able to achieve with the players has just been fantastic. Everything you hear from the players has just been absolute top notch. Obviously the results have been fantastic. As a supporter, I think the game plan and the game style they're playing has just been great. It's the way we want to see our team playing. It's what we've always prided ourselves on at Port Adelaide. And so to see that coming through on the pitch has just been fantastic. So, I think everything Ken's done and everything you're hearing from the outside looking in points to the fact that he's been fantastic as a coach, and I think has got them playing a style of football that is going to see them, do well for a long time to come. I think they're building a foundation of, doing those little things, doing those team things right, that really is going to set the club up for the future and hopefully at some stage for, playing good finals footy, because I think that's the sort of footy that really that wins games of finals and wins, the big one at the end of the day as well. And not saying they're going to get there anytime soon, but I think, he's the sort of coach that could get us there, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's certainly made Port Adelaide destination programming whenever they're on TV. It's an exciting brand of football. Turning our attention to this Saturday, AAMI Park, we play against your mob. How do you see the game unfolding, and what do you think we should be looking out for?
Well, first of all, I think AAMI Park's somewhere else around the country. I'm not sure where that is, so don't head along there. You better head along to AAMI Stadium.
AAMI Stadium, yes.
Because we don't want you to send you in the wrong direction. But I think it does. It kind of depends which Port shows up, to be honest. I think, we've seen the two halves of Port in recent weeks where we've, lost to the Western Bulldogs, for instance, in what was a pretty disappointing affair. And then, obviously come out and been able to beat Sydney, which, as you said, are one of the real benchmarks of the competition. And so I think it's really going to depend on which game Port bring along. Obviously, with such a young team, that there is going to be that inconsistency there at times. Obviously, we're really hopeful that game we played against Sydney is now going to be the benchmark, and that's going to continue on. But, as a supporter, I think, probably it's a reflection of the last few years we've gone through that you do sort of look at that and think, well, I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure yet whether we're going to be able to perform that way on a consistent basis. So I think if we don't bring that sort of game, then we're going to struggle against Collingwood. I think, they've got the players and the game plan that could really trouble us. I think if we do bring that sort of game, then we're going to give it a red-hot crack, and it's going to be an absolute ripping game.
Because realistically, when we talk about, Port Adelaide have had their ups. They were up for the big 5 weeks and then down. And realistically, though, those 5 losses, they won't buy, with the exception of, I think, the Geelong game, I don't think they will buy a hell of a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's been, once again, one of the really pleasing things under Ken Hinkley. One of the things, he had an advertising campaign at the start of the year, and one of his really strong comments was, this team is never going to give in. And I think a lot of people sort of sat back and had a bit of a look at that and went, wow, that's a bold statement, given some of the performances over the last couple of years. But I think they have lived up to that. There's been times where they haven't played great footy. There's been times where, their disposal and their game style and all those things have let them down. But there certainly hasn't been the thrashings that we've seen over the last couple of years. I think that they do seem to have a different mentality and a different work ethic and a different fitness base now that means that, even when things aren't going their way, they're at least giving it a red-hot crack, which, once again, is really pleasing as a Port fan.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. So, what players should Nathan Buckley be having a good look at?
I don't know.
To try and counteract. I don't think he listens. I'm not sure to put it out there.
I reckon there's probably 3, and I reckon because there's a couple of players at Port that have been really super consistent. I think your Boak, who's obviously out, your Ollie Wines has been fantastic, your Ebert's been fantastic, but I think the 3 you probably really want to look out for. Number 20, Chad Wingard, who'll play a bit through the middle and a bit up forward, has just been an absolute revelation this year. I think, last year he showed what he was capable of, but this year he's been doing it on a much more consistent basis, winning the ball through the middle, being really creative with it, and being pretty damaging on the scoreboard as well. And so he's definitely one to watch out for. He's been a real catalyst for Port in the wins that they've had. So I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on. I would say number 2, is Hamish Hartlett. He was just on fire at the start of the season, playing absolutely amazing football. For Collingwood fans, you probably get, when he's playing well, you're probably going to look at him and think, hey, he actually looks a little bit like Nathan Buckley in the way that he plays. And when he's on song, he can look that way. And he's over the 5 losses, he was pretty quiet. He really got tagged out of the game. So I think from a Collingwood perspective, he's one that you probably do want to put a heavy tag on and tag him out of the game, because if you let him get the ball, he can be really damaging. I mean, he's got an amazing leg, and he can be very, very damaging with his disposals. Even if he just gets, his 20 touches, he can really cut you up and be very damaging. I think the third one to look out for, and probably even Port supporters might think this is a bit of an unusual one, but I think John Butcher is one that you really want to keep an eye on. He's just working his way back into the team. He's certainly been down on confidence. His first game back, he really battled with his kicking. He was dropping balls left, right and centre, but he seems like he's working towards it. He was out last week with a little bit of a bit of a man flu, I think, by the sound of it. But he's back in this week, and I think he just looks like he's ready to sort of take a game by the scruff of the neck and move up to that next level. So, I think you guys should be hoping that it's not this weekend. I don't know whether it will be or not, but he's one to keep an eye out for, because he's shown in previous years when he does get his form up and he does start clunking the ball and kicking the goals, that he can be a pretty damaging player up there.
Yeah, there's definitely a few players there that I'm certainly concerned with, and how GWS ignored Chad Wingard for 5 picks beggars belief, in my opinion. But absolutely amazing. But one other guy that I want to focus on, who's been a bit of a revelation for Port, is young Jay Need. We have a young fella on our New South Wales scholarship scheme by the name of Elijah Edwards, who is similar in build to Jay Need. And how do you think he's adapted to the game, and what can we look forward to as Collingwood supporters from a similar player?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the way he's adapted to the game has been phenomenal. I mean, for someone so young, so slight of build, who's, moved to a new state, who's, kind of had everything going against him, he has been absolutely sensational. His pressure acts have been unbelievable. His ability to tackle even the biggest blokes, even the ruckman on the ground, has just been superb. He really gets in there, and I think that's the key for a player like that. It's that old cliche that, it's not necessarily about the size, but it's about the mindset when you head in there for a tackle. And he's just got that mindset that he just goes like a little terrier and absolutely grabs them and takes them down and doesn't take any prisoners. And that's stood him in really good stead. I mean, he's been able to do some. He's lightning quick. He's been able to do some really exciting things. He's kicked some fantastic goals, but it's definitely that pressure and that tackling that's really set him as a cut above this year. And once again, GWS, for GWS to give us Jake Need and Homch for pick 29 in last year was just absolutely a phenomenal pickup for Port, an absolute steal, because Jack Homch has come in the last couple of weeks and been a bit of a revelation in the background as well. So, sorry, the back lines as well. And so, those two have just been fantastic for us.
A little bit of charity never goes astray, especially when you're looking for quality players. Hey, MegaBob, you've been a bit quiet there, but I need your help now, because Mr. Tradition here is going to throw some questions at us about what he can expect from our side.
Okay, so look, from a Port perspective, I guess we're always interested in Nathan Buckley. He's one of our old boys, played with the Magpies and won a McGarry medal in the SANFL. So, just interested to hear your thoughts on how he's going as coach. From the outside looking in, I guess it's been a big transition from Mick to Bucks, and we're just curious as to how that's working out for you.
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's really been the big question on everyone's minds, everyone's lips, that bleeds black and white like I do. Look, for me, when Bucks took the job, it was almost like the poor guy was on a hiding to nothing. He inherits a side that plays off in the last 2 grand finals, wins one of them. I mean, anything less but the ultimate success is always going to be criticised, especially by so many supporters who really did love the former coach. It does make it a bit easier now that he's gone to Carlton and incurred the wrath of all of us. Look, I can see what Buckley's trying to do slowly. He's trying to take us from a game style that hugged the boundary and was a bit more patient to something that is a bit more free-flowing. a little bit more freewheeling, which is kind of like he played his football. And slowly, it's going to work. But there's always going to be kinks, and it's always going to take time for that game plan to develop. I mean, how many years did it take for Mick to get us to a game plan that won us a premiership? So patience, stability, I think, is always the key when it comes to clubs, and I think it's no different here. So I think he's doing okay, given the injuries. Not many coaches finished top 4 in their first season, so I'll take that for now, and we'll keep building.
Yeah, and it seems like you guys have, from your form perspective, I guess, been a little bit up and down as well, like not as consistent perhaps as you had been in previous years. I mean, you've obviously been blooding a lot of young players. You know, how have you guys felt that form line's been of late?
Well, we get beaten. We seem to get beaten by quite a bit, and it's a little bit worrying that our losses have come against 4 of the top 5 sides, and by considerable margins. Look. The inconsistency is obviously the concerning part, and probably the inability to stop teams when they get a run on also is quite worrying. I believe that'll be remedied as some of these guys come back into the side. Missing your Copeland Trophy winner, the best of Ferris, Dane Beams. You're missing guys of the ilk of Alex Solo, who kicked 30 goals last year. Guys like Lockie Keefe, who's an emerging key position defender. These guys have an effect on the side. But I think that, the form is a concern coming into finals, and I'd like to think that we can rectify a few of those issues going forward in the second half of the year.
Wow, sounds like you're just preferring a couple of excuses there. Like you guys might be a bit worried about playing us this weekend. Players out. Oh yeah. To be quite honest, I am. I have been concerned about this game for a little while now, and you touched on it before. The Port team is very fit, and they're running out games well, and we're not running out games well. And if you watch the Dogs game a couple of weeks ago, yes, it almost seemed like half the team switched off at half time, but the Dogs ran out the game better than us. So. I mean, one of your strengths is one of our weaknesses. So, and also, you seem to move the ball a lot quicker than we like to handle it. So, I'm certainly considering this a danger game by all means. Yeah, well, that's good to hear from a Port supporter, because I think over the last couple of years there haven't been too many teams, kind of scared of us over the last few years. So it's kind of nice that hopefully we're winning back a bit of that respect. And I guess the last question I have for you guys, I was just curious, obviously coming off of the bye, as to how you've handled that in previous years and how you see that affecting you this week.
And to be quite honest, I don't. I remember the first year the bye was introduced. I think we came up against Geelong, and they completely outplayed us in 2011 in our very first loss to them. I honestly can't remember who we played the week after the bye last year. But look, I think it does have a telling effect, especially when the team has run into a little vein of form, a couple of wins, yes, against some. Not brilliant opposition, but when you get into that little streak, especially for the younger players, it's good to keep that momentum going. Keep I was very keen to keep the ball rolling. I hate the bye round. It was such a terrible weekend of football, with the exception of a couple of games. But look, on the other side of it, 76 touched on this last week. We needed the rest, and we looked like we were fading out of games pretty badly. So it's come at the right time. I'm not sure how we'll respond, but we'll see how we go.
Well, it certainly seems like a few of the teams been battling off the bye in recent times. So hopefully that'll continue on the weekend.
Yeah, good. That'll be good for you, but not so good for us. We'll have to wait and see how we go. I guess the last little point of discussion I'd like to make is somewhat of a somber one. Talking about the passing of John McCarthy in September of last year. As a Port supporter, what impact did John have at his time with his time at the club?
Yeah, I guess from the outside looking in, it's it's hard to tell the impact he had on the inside. But from certainly everything we've heard from the players to everything we've heard from the supporters who met him or had anything to do with him, he had a remarkable impact on the club in such a short space of time. He was such an exceptional guy to really, really impact people in such a genuine way, just with his his positivity, his smile, his just such a good bloke and a good fun bloke to be around that just fitted in like an absolute glove into the team. And so I think, as I said, a remarkable impact given that he was there for such a short period of time. And obviously this weekend it's going to be all about, well, a large part of it about paying respect to JMac. I understand there's going to be a fundraiser there at the game. So I really encourage, all the fans to get along and to get along to this important game. Obviously a bit of a blockbuster against Collingwood, but to really pay respect to someone who did have such an impact on the club in such a short space of time and contribute to that fundraiser, because I think that's really important.
Certainly, and I think it's great that both clubs acknowledge John McCarthy and the impact he made with both of our respective sides. And
yeah, I
hope that everyone can get down to the game and spare a thought for a young man who tragically lost his life.
Absolutely.
Enviable Tradition, it has been an absolute pleasure talking football with you. Thank you so much for joining us. And, whenever you're happy to have a chat and give us a bit of a tongue lashing in regards to how Collingwood are performing, maybe you'll finish above us. I don't think it'll happen, but maybe you will. And
you never know.
Feel free to give me a call and rub it in.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys. Great to come on.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having you again. I'd like to take this time to pay tribute to the memory of John McCarthy, who tragically passed away whilst on an end-of-season trip in Las Vegas in September of last year. John played his under-18s football for the Dandenong Stingrays in the TAC Cup before being drafted by Collingwood at the end of 2007 with the 31st pick that year. John McCarthy, affectionately referred to as JMac, spent 4 years at the Collingwood Football Club, playing predominantly in the midfield or off the half-forward flank, scoring 10 goals across 18 senior games for the Pies. Despite playing only 2 games in the 2010 season, JMac was selected as an emergency for the 2010 Grand Final draw and replay, a true testament to his on-field ability and how highly he was regarded by the club. Despite playing 8 games for the Pies in 2010, John left the club at the end of the year seeking greater opportunities for senior selection. He was eventually selected by the Port Adelaide Football Club in the 2011 pre-season draft. John went on to play 21 games, scoring 5 goals in the 2012 premiership season, boasting career-high stats in all areas and a breakout year by anyone's standards. John became an integral member of a young but talented Port Adelaide midfield and was highly regarded within the club for his work ethic and relationship with teammates. This Saturday marks the first occasion that Collingwood and Port Adelaide will face off since JMac's passing. So take a moment to remember a man who worked his hardest to reach the pinnacle of his profession and who gave so much to the people in his life. Remember the great moments that John gave us all as supporters as he plied his craft on the grandest stage of Australian sport. Spare a thought for his friends and family who have lost an incredible part of their lives and for his teammates who graced the field on Saturday night spurred on by his memory. I encourage everyone who is able to make their way down to AAMI Stadium and to create an atmosphere befitting of such a great individual. Thanks for the memories, JMac. Rest in peace, John McCarthy.
Hi everyone, it's Magpie Girl here, and I'm having a girls' chat tonight, given the fact that it's Women in Football Week. And I've been joined by Vicky Park and Maggie5. So welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
So, Vicky Park, given that it is Women in Football Week, what do you think about the week? Do you think it's something that that it's important for the AFL to honour, or do you think it's just another excuse for something?
Look, I do think it's a really good initiative of the AFL. This idea of theming rounds has been, theming different rounds has been around for a while. And having a women's round, well, why not? There's, 4, 5, 6 other themes that they tackle during the year. And I think that it's really important to bring some sort of attention to the involvement of women in football. And just looking at the club, we've got our own Elisa Camplin, of course, who's 1 in 7 directors on our board. We've got quite a few women working in the club including outside administration. There's women in the football department, including according to the website. Be interesting to know what their roles are, what they actually do. I don't think any of us are knocking down the doors yet for assistant coaching positions, but still to have women in the football department seems to me a great advancement. And then, of course, just a higher proportion of women as members of clubs and attending matches. I think that the figure's currently running at about 35%. So at AFL level, I think that's a really high proportion of women involved across the, if you like, the range of football following and participation in clubs. There's also the grassroots stuff that women do throughout the country from the junior clubs right through to the middle ranking clubs, if you like, and coaching and umpiring. But Magpie Girl, I was hoping you wouldn't mind if I also made a brief comment on women in media. I think we've got some terrific examples. Sam Lane did some great work for over a decade with Before the Game. I think she's been replaced now by, is it Neroli Meadows, who's doing pretty well.
Do you know, I find Sam Lane really hard to listen to.
Do you?
Yeah, I really struggle with her. I don't know about you, Maggie. What about you?
The Carlton bit.
Yeah, it's very obvious, isn't it?
Look, it is. But there's a couple of others I just want to comment on quickly. Emma Quayle, writing for The Age, she's got this whole thing about the draft stitched up. She's really nailed that area of footy journalism. And the last person I'll mention is a name that normally brings the big footy boards melting down, and that's Caroline Wilson. Now, whether you love her or hate her, she's been pretty successful at what she's doing there at The Age. I think she's like the chief investigative journalist into footy. None of us enjoyed her articles on Dane Swan earlier in the year, but more recently she's had James Hird in her sights, so she's forgotten about Dane for the time being.
Yeah, she's a strong personality and often very hard to take, but you've got to admire what she's achieved in what was very much a male field.
That's right, I agree. And she does the hard-hitting stuff. It's certainly not, a soft approach to football journalism, far from it.
Yeah. And Maggie5, what about you?
Well, regarding Caroline Wilson, I think that she's good as long as she maintains her objectivity. She tends to get, I think, emotionally involved in some of her writing, and then I think she loses perspective. And I think that's when we all get riled up.
So, talking about women in football, I believe you've discovered this week, Maggie, that there's not very many female members in the Collingwood Big Footy Forum. Not as many as we thought, anyway.
Yes, I put a post up and have found out that there's only about 8 females as members or registered members of the forum. And that's what really surprised me. So maybe we should do something about it and get guys to ask their girlfriends or their wives to sign up.
Yeah. Well, you don't always know, do you? It's people kind of, they don't always put down whether they're male or female. And sometimes they kind of guard themselves a little bit, that you're not always sure. Although
no, you're not.
They do eventually give themselves away, I think. But then sometimes I think they pretend to be something they're not.
There's a bit of that going on, isn't there?
Yes.
I always thought that big footy was inhabited by crazy people, so I held off on looking at it for a long time. But about the middle of last year, someone drew my attention to Nightmare's mid-year roundup, or I think he calls it the Collingwood Almanac this year. And when I read that in the middle of last year, I thought, oh, this is good. This is great information. So I started following and sort of visiting, and it's just a fantastic place for content and insights and some very funny posters. But there's also an awful lot of rubbish and often some quite aggressive posters. So I try to avoid those. I haven't used the ignore function yet, but I'm still not quite sure who to ignore, to be honest, because sometimes you enjoy some posters and other times you don't. But anyway, it's good fun.
Yeah, well, it's certainly been a pretty active board in the last couple of months with some really big issues that come to the fore. So it's been quite extraordinary to see the strength of emotion and the passion that's expressed by a lot of people on these issues.
Yeah, I think the emotion there is really great, and I think most of the posters there are really fantastic. I love, I've been a long time lurker before I eventually registered, and in fact it was one of those aggressive posters that made my blood boil, so I decided to register and respond to them, because I just thought, you can't say things like that because they're not true, take your blinkers off. So I registered, and then now I'm a regular poster.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, and I really enjoy your posts too.
Yeah, so do I.
So, did you grow up a Collingwood supporter, Vicky? Were your family?
The family was, but none of them as mad as me. And from a very young age, about 11, 12, started going to the football to see the Pies at Victoria Park. So it's been a long time, a very long love affair. It's still going.
Yeah. And Maggie5, I believe you migrated out here at a very young age with your family. How did you come to barrack for Collingwood?
Well, yes, it was sort of a bit of a force, because originally I really liked the red and black of the Essendon colours, but my brothers had took ownership of them first and said to me, you're not going to follow Essendon, and if you do, we'll just bash you. So out of fear, I figured black and white was a good colour. And since then, I've been absolutely passionate and been a Collingwood member ever since I could afford it, and then I switched to AFL. So I think I've had more fun than they've had anyway, so it gives me great time to be a Collingwood supporter and then be an Essendon supporter at the moment.
Yes, and I hope you rub their nose in it when we beat them in the 1990 grand final.
Oh, I did better than that. I converted their children to Collingwood.
Good for you. Well, look, we can't end without declaring our obvious interest here in just talking about a little bit of Collingwood booty, I think was the expression you used, Vicky Park. So you want to go first? Most admired butt?
No. Current or historically?
Oh, you choose.
No, look, it's more the player, the whole
package,
rounded person that I had a lot of admiration for, and go back a while, a lot of them over the years. But I have to say, the ones that I've always really loved is pretty much anybody to do with the Shaw family.
Yeah.
Going back to Ray Shaw, they really are Collingwood royalty, and it's very hard not to love Heater, isn't it? But even though he's crazy,
he's like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
I have a real soft spot for him.
Yep.
And even Dane Swan. I like the ones that all kind of get themselves into a bit of trouble every now and then.
The bad boy.
The bad boys, yeah. And Maggie, what about you?
Well, for me, I agree with Vicky with the Shaw family, but we're talking about us, which we probably shouldn't, given it's Women's Week in football, and we'd probably be upset if the men talked about us like this. But it would probably be Gavin Brown, hands down.
Yeah, you've got a real soft spot for him, huh?
Oh, he was.
What is it that you like about him?
Oh, he was just hard at it. Remember, they tried to rough him up, and he was back up again. Didn't sort of take a backward step. Oh, he was a one good, tough Collingwood player.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Well, girls, anything else you want to say?
Only that I really love the Big Footy Forum, and the mods are great, and even the two posters that I try to stay away from, I love it there.
Provide a bit of entertainment, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. And
a laugh sometimes.
Yes. And Vicky Park?
Just to say 2013's not over yet.
That's right. That's right.
Well done.
Yes. I remember being away in 2010, And, every week I'd sort of look the scores up on the internet and I'd go, oh, no, we lost again. And I just really gave it up. And then I came home, I don't know, in about August or something, and suddenly everything changed and, we ended up winning the grand final. So it's never over till it's September. Well, thank you both for joining me tonight. I think it's been a lot of fun, and it's been lovely to meet you. And that's the end of this segment of the podcast. I've been talking to Vicky Park and Maggie5, and this is Magpie Girl saying good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Dave here doing Dave's segment for BigFooty podcast, and you guys have selected me to do a segment on Brodie Grundy and my thoughts about him, which I'll give right now. Well, the reason I really like him is his versatility. He's very good in the ruck, but he also can go forward and kick goals. A bit like how Darren Jolly does it. I mean, well, Darren Jolly's probably not the right comparison, but I've heard people compare him to Todd Goldstein, who's done a very good job at North, so that's promising. And where we got him to drop at pick 18, that was, I couldn't believe when we took him, because if you told me a year before that we got Grundy, also, what happened? Did we have many injuries, lose a ton of games? Because I thought he would have been a top 5 pick at absolute worst at that. I mean, even in pre-draft he was rated as a second or third best prospect in the draft. But we saw that a fortnight before the draft that things were going out there. Midfielders were climbing up the draft board, and Grundy was going down the draft board for some reason. I don't know. The only reason I don't know if it's a reason we haven't heard of or something that happened, or I really doubt that. But I say it's more that midfielders can make an impact season 1, and make a big impact, and where Ruckman can take at least 3 or so seasons to become consistently good, where midfielders can do it straight away, which is a bit of a pain. I mean, it's not a pain, but it's good to see, but just why some tall players will drop. Well, and then during the pre-season, you had a back injury which was not very good. It was holding back quite a bit, and as you can tell, we've not been training a lot, not many game time. He lost his touch a fair bit, as we saw in his first couple of games back in the VFL, where he just looked lost around again, not sure where to go, where to lead. He did get some touches, but just didn't have the feel of the game. But his last game he had against Coburg, he really looked like he was really finding the flow of the game, getting to the right places, reading the ball. He took some very good marks and set up some great goals. And also did well in the ruck, and even got onto a few passes through the midfield, and he delivered the ball well to his teammates. That was really promising. He could he play AFL this season? It's a long shot, but not impossible because of his potential yet. I could see him coming in for a couple of weeks during the season. Maybe when we play GWS might be even the perfect time to play him if he had some very good games in the VFL together, which you play against GWS, who haven't beaten anyone yet this season. They even lost to Melbourne, which is saying a lot, and how bad Melbourne is. But if he plays well, then he might get a couple more games after that, because I can still see him playing in the second ruck behind Jolly, maybe for a few games, because Grundy, as you said before, Grundy can go forward and kick goals, as well as go in the ruck and be competitive in the ruck. So you could be okay in the AFL, but can't expect anything against the bigger bodies. But for a couple of weeks, it wouldn't hurt. As what I've seen from Lynch lately, which has been not much, can be much worse. Oh well, that's the end of my segment, so I hope you enjoy that, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Hi, this is TradeDraft telling all supporters going to the weekend game in Adelaide to get down and join the SA Magpies before the game at the Directors Hotel at 247 Gouger Street, Adelaide. Preceding kick-off from 11 a.m, special guest past player Michael Taylor will be joining them from around midday at 12 o'clock. Michael played 92 games for Collingwood between 1981 and 1984. He played in the 1981 Grand Final. He was Collingwood reserves coach. SA Magpies will have a Collingwood dripping off the walls. Enjoyed Collingwood triumphs on DVDs throughout the afternoon. Sausage sizzle, soup and cakes will be available. Drinks will be a member discount prices. Become a member of the SA Magpies. Raffles and prizes will be given away. Head to the ground between 2 and 3 p.m. Join the SA Magpies for the Collingwood March through the city to the free bus service to AAMI Stadium or make your own way by car. If you aren't staying in the city, get the bus in and join us. For those doing the fly-in, fly-out for the day, there's a bus from the airport that stops 3 streets away. Get off at West Terrace and head south to Gouge Street. Join the SA Magpies on Saturday to get revved up for the game.